I noticed that most people didn't communicate openly with each other. So you'd have a conversation with one person in an individual setting, and then you go into a meeting and they would say something completely different than what they told you. I began to ask questions. One of the things that is greatly lacking in a lot of business leaders is...
Welcome to KlikTV. Today, we're excited to introduce Tony Diekemper, our new Chief of Strategic Operations at Klik Solutions. Though Tony has joined us just 2 months ago, he's been designing and delivering leadership programs for years. And he's now bringing these proven sessions to our team, open to anyone who wants to attend, with a strong background in leadership, process improvement, team building, and technology solutions, plus a business administration certificate from Georgetown University. Tony is helping shape how we grow as leaders and as a company. And let's hear from Tony himself. Tony, welcome to KlikTV.
Thank you, Arthur. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've spent years leading communication classes focused on leadership growth, something that I've always been interested in developing myself and some of my team members here at Klik. What initially drew you to this work, and how has this approach evolved over time?
What really drew me to that initially was when I started working in a professional office environment. I noticed that most people didn't communicate directly or openly with each other. So you'd have a conversation with one person in an individual setting, and then you go into a meeting and they would say something completely different than what they told you when you were talking to them one-on-one. And I thought that was very strange. So as I began to ask questions to people about why they did things like that, the answer was always really simple. It was, well, that's just the way it is. You can't be open, you can't be honest, you can't be candid with people at work. And so I just thought that that was kind of silly and counterproductive, and decided that I wanted to do that differently with my team. So we started building some frameworks and some rules for how we would communicate it as a team. And that was really the beginning of the communications program that I've been doing ever since then.
It's great. I've been fortunate myself to participate in a communications class.
And you were one of the best students we've ever had.
Well, I had no doubts on that one. I know you spent some time at Georgetown University. I've always been very impressed with your career, how it has evolved from super large organizations down to smaller organizations who've experienced growth. Can you maybe talk about those experiences, perspective on leadership?
I think I had the luxury of starting my career off at a place that is pretty well known and famous in the local area. Worked with Aerotech, which is now known as Allegis Group. We were growing really fast. Our revenue growth was about 100% a year for many, many years. The company went from a startup to $1 billion in revenue in just 17 years. And I think the thing that impressed me the most about all of that was that Stephen Bisciotti had a clear picture of what leadership was supposed to be. He grew that organization through leadership and work ethic more than anything, and that was incredible. As my first real business opportunity, I got a chance to see what was possible. Since then, I've worked in a lot of organizations where they really didn't understand how much they could do. They were pretty sure that there were limitations and constraints on them that weren't actually there. And so I think I learned the real value of leadership, having the opportunity to work with Stephen in those early years.
I think I maybe mentioned to you in prior conversation that like at one time Aerotech was like my dream job. As early on in my career in the technical space, like I wanted so badly to come work. Had, I think, actually a couple interviews there at their building. Is it off 100 or something like that?
That's right.
Yeah, I was so impressed by it. But anyway, things always work out, right? So what is kind of the most underrated skill or mindset that leaders often tend to overlook, right? That is super, super important for long-term success.
There's thousands and thousands of books on leadership. There's more written every year. It's a much discussed, often misunderstood topic. But I think when you look at what great leaders do, their wake for a great leader is defined by trust, right? And so everybody wants to be trusted, but most people don't want to do the work to be trustworthy. So when I think of trust, I think of David Horsager, who wrote the book, The Trust Edge. David and I have been friends for many years, and he's probably the foremost authority today on trust. So building trust is a challenging thing. And for me, one of the things that is really greatly lacking in a lot of business leaders is the humility and the gratitude necessary to build an organization that really embodies trust. So trust building has a lot of facets to it, but I think humility and gratitude are two of the things that we don't really pay much attention to that are really foundational for great leadership. It's part of what I've learned from working with David over the years.
I know you've spent a lot of time working with our CTO, Roman Schrag, on a lot of process improvement, optimization, like maximizing all our efforts right into a kind of a desired outcome. At the end, it really benefits not only our business, right, but also our clients that we work so hard to support, right? How do you balance the technical side of process improvement and technology solutions alongside the human side of team building and communication?
One of the key words in your question is balance. And it's actually a concept that I don't pursue is balance. The concept that we pursue is integration. And the difference for me is those things have to work together. When you have an organization where the processes are non-existent or weak, it has a significantly negative impact on culture and people, because the people are the ones who have to deal with a lack of process, who deal with the ineffectiveness, who deal with unhappy customers. When processes work smoothly, it makes for a better culture. Because once people understand that if you invest in your process, it makes things easier for your people as well, then all of a sudden you see it as a mutually reinforcing investment, which is what it should be, and all too often it's not.
You know, oftentimes I get young professionals, entrepreneurs asking me for some advice. You know, my kind of default advice is be prepared to work hard. What advice would you give to someone that is looking to develop their leadership skills and make a meaningful impact within their organization?
I learned something many years ago. I was about 27 years old, and my wife bought me a book called Quality is Free by Philip Crosby. This was before the internet, so stalking was still legal, I think. So I decided to pick up the phone and call Mr. Crosby. And
Impressive.
I asked him if I could talk to him. And he said, well, what do you want? I said, I love your book. I want to meet with you. So he was in Florida. We lived in New York at the time. And he said, well, you know, if you want to buy a plane ticket, I'll meet with you. So my wife and I flew down there. And I spent a day meeting with him at his house in his office. And at the end of it, he said, you know, what are you going to do now? And I said, I don't know. He goes, all right, let me give you some advice. So this is really directly from him. Mm-hmm. He said, what you need to do is you need to go back to where you work and pick one thing and make it better. And the best thing that you can find to work on is something that everybody knows is a problem, but nobody wants to deal with. So there's a great quote by Thomas Edison that work is often, or leadership opportunities are often missed because they come dressed in work overalls, right? And so leadership is really about doing the hard things that other people don't want to do. The good news is there's an abundance of those things. The bad news is most people don't want to touch them because they're afraid of what's going to happen. But in your question, what do you do to build leadership skills? You do hard things.
Yeah.
You do hard things that you don't yet know how to do. That's how you learn. And so the speed of learning is really essential for good leaders. So tackle the hard projects that everybody knows are there and nobody else wants to touch, and be prepared for it not to go perfectly. So if you make learning the goal and not perfection, then you can really build your leadership skills quickly.
Tony, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights and experiences. Highly valuable. It's clear your leadership and communication expertise already making an impact here. We're looking forward to seeing how your vision continues to shape success in your role. And thanks for everyone watching KlikTV. Be sure to stay tuned for more inspiring conversations with the people driving innovation and growth. And if you want to learn more about the work that Tony is doing, please see the information below, click on the link, and make sure to check out his classes. I guarantee you it'll change a lot of things for you.
Thank you, Arthur. It was a pleasure being here. Yeah, if you want to learn more about what we're doing, feel free to visit our website, Diekemper Consulting and Training.com, for a full explanation of the programs that we have available.